May I have your attention, please?
We are controlling transmission. There is nothing wrong.
The Horror Chronicles.
Whether it's a ghost, spirit, or entity, they all feed on it. That's the whispering, the footsteps, the feeling of another presence.
You won't have a chance to change your minds later, because there'll be no way to get out.
We have such sights to show you.
They will say that I have shed innocent blood.
Nope.
What's blood for, if not for shedding?
Have you checked the children?
Whatever you do, don't fall asleep.
Boogeyman's real.
That is better.
They're coming to get you.
What's up, everybody? You know what time it is. It's another episode of the Horror Chronicles podcast. I'm your host, Ryan, and with me, as always, my partner in crime, JT's in the house.
Partner in crime's a great expression for this episode.
That's kind of what I did. Little improvising.
Yeah.
What's up, everybody? It's kind of chilly out here where we're at.
It is. What do you think of my makeshift studio, though?
Guys, he built a dungeon. He has me in
I put Ryan in a closet.
No, it's nice, man. Cuts out the...
Yeah, I mean, it cuts out the echo. I mean, there's still a little bit going on,
we'll be
but,
all right.
you know, I figure until we get the real studio built, this will work for now.
For sure will. For sure. So,
until it falls down on top of us.
Yeah. Making things interesting.
But,
all right. But
then somebody will talk about our ghosts.
Yeah, 'cause I'm definitely haunting some people, I can tell you that.
Yeah, hell yeah.
Someone's getting haunted, for sure.
Hell yeah.
Today, guys, we are going to be talking about something that is pretty close. So we're, about an hour and a half away from that?
Yeah, something
it's
like
not very
that.
far.
I mean, not very far at all.
We're talking about the Missouri State Penitentiary.
The old MSP.
Yeah, and we're actually going to be going there sometime.
Yeah, we haven't been there yet. They've been doing these tours of the... It's really cool. They do several different kinds of tours. They do like a history tour where it's just... They take you through the prison. They tell you the history about it. And then they do ghost tours that last anywhere up to 4 hours, really. And now they're offering an overnight experience.
Actual ghost hunting, basically.
Yes.
Doing EVPs and all that stuff. Which I'm planning on doing that.
Yeah, if you guys are into like Ghost Hunters or Ghost Adventurers or any of
those shows,
they've all been here.
Yes, yeah, and we both just recently watched the Ghost Adventures one.
Yeah, yep.
Which is good.
Zach Baggins is a dick.
Yeah, people say that, man.
I just had to.
Everybody does. But you know what, man? One thing I will say about
No, he's fine.
Well, one thing I'll say about him in the show is this. Yeah, he's making money. But I really think the dude loves this stuff.
He loves what he's... Well, I mean, he wouldn't have been doing it for as long as he's been doing it. I mean, how long have they been doing it?
Oh, yeah. Well, not only that.
I think I saw something the other day, like they've got 20 seasons.
22. This is the
22 seasons.
I believe, yeah.
So I think they've been doing it for 18 years, though, I think.
Yeah, because they have multiple seasons.
Yeah.
But the thing is with him is, like, I was talking to somebody else about this. We were kind of talking about, Zach, he's just a mockery. I'm like, well, thing is this. Now, don't get me wrong. You're not going to get haunted, like we said before. You're not going to get possessed every time you walk into a room.
Unless you're Zach Baggins.
However,
or Bagans, as
Who are we to say what he's feeling and what he's not feeling?
That's true, because I do believe there are people out there that can feel and sense things more than other people.
Yeah.
That is not me.
Yeah. I'm not psychic. I might be a little psychotic, but I'm not psychic. Psychosocial. No, I kind of get feelings and stuff like that, and I can tell you that, he's doing what I would love to do. He's getting paid to freaking, you know what I mean? He's getting paid to do what he loves. He's getting paid to go check out haunted places and stuff like that. And he's got his own haunted mansion and all this other stuff, blah, blah, museum. I mean, just to get off that fact, part of it. But anyway,
we're not here to talk about Zach Bagans or whatever, but
it is what it is.
But I mean, if you guys are interested, they did do a really good episode on the Missouri State Penitentiary.
I liked it. For sure.
Yeah, it turned out really cool.
But I think I'm gonna let JT kind of get into some of the little history and opening up.
Oh, my chair farted. Sorry. So history of the Missouri State Penitentiary. So the state of Missouri was actually admitted into the U.S. in 1821. Jeff City was designated the capital in 1822. The governor at that time, his name was John Miller, he decided that, we need to do something to make sure that we remain a capital. So they enlisted this man. He was a stonemason, and sorry, I don't know the guy's name. I forgot to write it down. But he built the first Capitol building in 1826. The governor, around the beginning of the 1830s, there were a bunch of cities in Missouri. I almost said St. Louis. St. Louis was one of them. But there was a bunch of cities in Missouri that were vying for capitalism. They wanted to be the capital of Missouri. They wanted to take that away from Jefferson City. So the governor, which his name was John Miller, he decided that, you know what, we're going to build a state penitentiary, and we're going to build the biggest one we can. And if we do that, that will make us the more viable option for a capital for the state of Missouri.
Look a lot better for him.
So that's what they did. In 1831, he proposed that they build the Missouri State Penitentiary. So they started on this penitentiary in 1832, 1833, somewhere around in there, and it was completed in 1836. So they opened this prison in 1836. The first inmate inducted into the prison. Interred. I'm sorry. He was interred into the prison was Wilson Eidson, and he was from Greene County. And I found out from doing some research, he was actually put in prison for larceny, and it was for a theft of stealing $39.
Oh, yeah.
This guy was put in prison for 2 years for stealing $39.
Yeah, man.
Man, times were tough back then.
Well, yeah.
Tough.
$39
wouldn't get me around the block right now.
Yeah, I see.
So anyway, when the prison first opened, the first inmate I told you was Wilson Eidson. The prison consisted of one guard, one warden, 15 inmates, and one foreman who was in charge of the bricklaying construction. Which, interestingly enough, they used the inmates to build most of the buildings in this place. They had a quarry on site. They would go out, they would cut the rock, they would bring it back, and build this building. Man. So not only are you imprisoned in this place, you've got to put it together.
Yeah.
Okay. They built most of the buildings inside the complex, and also later on built the brick wall that goes all the way around and encompasses the complex. And then after that, the warden put them on hard labor building some of the homes and the mansions around the outside of it. They built the warden's house and several other mansions outside the property.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hard labor.
That's
hard labor.
Cutting them rocks, just chipping them rocks away alone would be freaking ridiculous.
So later on, the first female inmate was a woman named Amelia Eddy, and she was interred in 1842, which was really interesting back then because they didn't have prisons for women.
Mm-hmm.
These prisoners were coming from all over the country. At that time, the Missouri State Penitentiary was the largest prison west of the Mississippi River.
Yeah.
And through its time, okay, we'll just get into some numbers here. So the Missouri State Penitentiary was open for 168 years from 1836 to 2004. Yeah. They closed their doors on September 15th of 2004. In that time, they were the longest operational penal facility west of the Mississippi. They were open 100 years before Alcatraz.
Yeah, because 1836.
That's hard to imagine.
Well, yeah, and you know think about it like this. It opened in 1836, right? They got their first inmate in 1836.
Right.
The same day as the Battle of the Alamo.
Yes. Yeah, the Alamo was falling in Texas whenever they opened this prison.
I mean, that just tells you how old it is.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? That's crazy.
It is. It really is.
So, yeah.
But, there's been some changes at the prison. There's been some new buildings built. There's been some old buildings torn down. There's been some old buildings destroyed from riots.
Yeah.
One of the interesting facts for me is I'm kind of going to jump ahead in time here, was the executions. Missouri State Penitentiary has a gas chamber. It's still there. It's still standing. You can walk inside it. You can tour this place. You can go in and sit down in the 2 chairs that are inside their gas chamber. I think that's pretty cool that you can actually do that. In fact, I watched a video of Henry Rollins doing that. He was in St. Louis, and he went over and took a tour of the penitentiary.
Oh, hell yeah.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. Pretty cool.
Black flags, baby.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So anyway, the penitentiary, they had executions from 1939 to 1965. In that time, they executed 39 people in the gas chamber. The 40th victim, there were only 40 executions in the prison. The 40th, I don't know, do you call them a victim?
No, I mean,
they're an asshole that,
whatever happened, I mean,
yeah.
Either way.
So anyway, the 40th person executed was in 1989, and that was the last execution at Missouri State Penitentiary, and he was executed by lethal injection.
And one thing, just talk about real fast, that there's only 40 executions, so people are like, okay, well, there's only 40 executions, but this place there's a reason why it's called the 47 bloodiest acres.
Yeah, the bloodiest 47 acres in America. Yeah.
And let alone on the property.
Yeah.
There's on the property, right? Not even I think they said like 100 yards away or 100 feet or something away from the gas chamber, there's a parking lot.
Yes.
And under that parking lot, there are hundreds of bodies from prisoners who died from some kind of disease that outbreak.
Yeah, there was an outbreak in the prison.
So there's hundreds of bodies just laying underneath them.
Well, yeah, and it was also, other inmates had murdered people. And
we'll get into that. There's definitely murders, but I mean, just that alone, having those hundreds of bodies there.
The one little thing that I want to add about the executions is after 1989, all capital punishment was moved to Potosi.
Yeah.
Correction facility.
Mm-hmm.
So.
And I mean, we can go ahead and talk about it since we're talking about the executions. The first woman to be executed, and she was executed alongside. Her name was Bonnie Heady. I think that's how you pronounce it, right? And she was actually in the gas chamber alongside Carl Hall, and they were charged with the Greenlease murder.
The Greenlease. It was an abduction. It was the Bobby Greenlease abduction.
And yeah, here you go. That.
So if you guys are interested in the story, I'll just read you a little excerpt from their article. It says, in September of 1953, Carl Alston Hall and Bonnie Emily Brown Heady kidnapped Bobby from Notre Dame de Sion, a Catholic school located in Kansas City, Missouri. The kidnappers were drug-addicted alcoholics then living together in nearby St. Joseph, Missouri. In the early 30s, Hall had attended Kemper Military School in Boonville, Missouri, with Paul Robert Greenlease, Bobby's adopted older brother. Hall had planned for years to victimize his former classmates' wealthy family. So this guy had been planning this stuff for years.
Since he was a kid, evidently.
He met this kid's older brother, and he said, let me see how I can make some money off of this. So basically, Hall and Heedy, they took this kid from the school. They took him across the state line to Johnson County, Kansas, where Hall shot him dead with a revolver. They then took his body to St. Joseph, Missouri, and buried him in the backyard of Heedy's house at 1201 South 38th Street. Crazy.
Yeah.
After the murder, Hall and Heedy sent Bobby's father a message demanding a ransom of $600,000. That today's standards, that'd be about $5.6 million.
Millions, yeah.
Okay. So Greenlease, desperately trying to save his son, he, held off the police and the FBI paying the money. Hall and Heedy collected the money and fled. At that time, it was the largest ransom ever paid in American history.
Phew. That's a lot.
And remained so until 1972 kidnapping of Virginia Piper.
Yeah.
Which we'll get into that story way later. But so these two kidnapped this kid.
Yeah.
They kill the kid, and then after they kill the kid,
then they get the ransom.
Then they send the ransom letter. So Hall, because he was convinced that police would trace them to St. Joseph, he randomly decided to drive to St. Louis. Now this is where the story gets really interesting for me because I grew up in St. Louis. They ended up holding out at this motel off of Watson Road called the Coral Courts Motel. Now, growing up as a kid, I knew that place, drove past it all the time. It was one of those, it was a no-tell motel.
Yeah.
You could rent rooms by the hour, and it was kind of interesting because each room had its own garage door. You could actually hide your car inside the garage so nobody would know you were there.
Shoot, yeah, dude.
Yeah. It was a pretty cool place. It has since been torn down. I'm not sure what they built there, but it's completely gone. But once they got to St. Louis, they were staying in this room at this Coral Courts Hotel. One of the associates, a former prostitute named Sandra O'Day, was supposed to fly to Los Angeles and mail a letter Hall had written. It was thought that this would divert police attention from St. Louis. However, O'Day caught a glimpse of the ransom money and decided to, turn it on him because she wanted part of that money. The St. Louis police soon learned that Hall was flaunting a large sum of money, and they brought him in for questioning. Hall eventually implicated Hetty. The police found Hetty in an apartment at 4504 Arsenal Street, also in St. Louis.
Yep, I know right where Arsenal
and discovered Bobby's body in a shallow grave in her backyard. Bobby Greenlease was later interred in a mausoleum at Forest Hill Cemetery in Kansas City, Missouri. The kidnapping and murder scandalized the nation and soon led to federal indictments for Hall and Heedy. Both pleaded guilty to kidnapping and murder and were executed together in the Missouri gas chamber at the Missouri State Penitentiary on December 18th, 1953. And to my knowledge, they are the only two that were ever gassed at the same time.
Same time, yep. That's what I read.
So Heedy was one of only two women since 1865 to be executed by federal authorities. The other was Ethel Greenglass Rosenberg. Since the federal government did not have any execution facilities, it used Missouri State's facilities to carry out the executions.
Ooh.
So these were federal executions, not state.
Yep.
Okay, they were executed by the federal government, the FBI or whatever. But they just used the Missouri State Penitentiary gas chamber to execute them.
Yeah, and
this place is in our backyard.
That's what I'm saying, man. This is awesome. Like, we can go there and check it out. Just like Lent Mansion.
Mm-hmm.
Lent Mansion's right up freaking another hour and a half away from us. I mean, we got some pretty good places that aren't too far away from us, man. But back into the penitentiary, we read that it housed 5,200.
At its highest point, and this was sometime during the 1940s to 1960s, it housed somewhere around 5,200 inmates.
Yeah.
5,200 inmates in one place is a huge amount of people. These cells were made for 3 inmates, and they were putting 6 per cell.
Oh, wait till we get to talk. We'll just wait till later. We'll talk about the whole.
And then we'll talk about death row later.
In the whole, yeah. We'll talk about that later. But a couple other, famous people who were incarcerated, inside of one. I want to talk about Charles Pretty Boy Floyd. He
was such a pretty boy.
He first arrived in 1925, and he was released in 1933 when he continued to steal and rob and murder and all that until, later on he was killed after being apprehended at a farm, and the police shot and killed him. He was also known as Pretty Boy Floyd, but they also said that he was the most dangerous man, or the most dangerous man alive is what they call him.
Wow.
Pretty Boy Floyd.
There were some colorful fellows in the penitentiary.
Well, one cool one though.
There usually are.
One cool one we need to talk about is Sonny Liston.
Yes.
The boxer. Which is crazy to me. I didn't know this, and I'm a freaking, I'm an MMA fan, boxing fan,
Right.
But he actually, I'm not a huge boxing fan, but anyway, Sonny Liston.
He just likes to watch boys beat on each other.
Yeah. He learned to box in the prison.
Yeah.
And he later became the heavyweight champ, as everyone knows. He served 2 years in 1950 for armed robbery. He was one of 17 kids. And
Wow.
He was illiterate. It just wasn't all that good for him, you know what I mean? Like, he kind of had a rough upcoming of it. So he was robbing to live, you know what I mean? And then basically he got incarcerated, learned how to box in prison, and they said, hey, man, you're good. He served his 2 years, got out, became the world champ. That's a heck of a story. And I know there's probably one you want to talk about.
There is one that I want to talk about. We're going to talk about one of the most famous people was Charles Lee Ray.
No, James.
Or James Lee.
I got you on that. I got you on it. James Earl Ray.
James Lee Ray.
That's my fault because I freaking told him every time I think about that name, all I hear is Chucky.
Charles. Yeah, and that's exactly what I was talking about. It's funny. We're going to cut all that out.
No, we're not.
Yes, we are. Because I have the power. I have the power.
The power.
Charles.
Charles
just flew right out.
Hey. Okay.
Wow.
Be all right,
So,
buddy.
okay. So, one of the other more famous people that a lot of people will know was James Lee Ray. Was incarcerated at Missouri State Penitentiary. He had actually been incarcerated there for 7 years. He ended up escaping. He's one of the very few inmates that escaped from Missouri State Penitentiary, and he escaped in a bakery truck in 1967. It was towards the end of April of 1967. He escaped, and he was on the run for almost a year. And then we all know the history on that.
Yeah.
April 2nd of 1968. He assassinated Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. in Memphis.
Yeah.
This was after he escaped Missouri State Penitentiary. The walls.
The bloody walls. Yeah, so he did all that, and he you know what though? I mean, there's a lot of.
So where did he go afterwards though? Did they?
I didn't hear. Well, as far as prison wise.
Yeah.
You know what? Your guess is as good as mine. I didn't even look into where he went
after
he got assassinated. But he got killed. Didn't they kill him?
Did they kill him? kind of what.
Yeah, because I remember. Well,
look at us not doing our research.
Well, you know, it is what it is. He wasn't that part wasn't involved in the penitentiary. So, but I know that there's a big conspiracy about.
Did he actually do it?
Yeah, because there was a lot of people
It's just like
there's a lot of people.
It's just like Lee Harvey Oswald.
And now, I don't. That's 100% bullcrap.
It's a grassy knoll.
Well, it's just if you know anything about that, and not only that, but the government has already came out actually and said that there was more than one person involved, and
more than meets the eye.
The magical bullet,
fucking Transformers.
The magical bullet shit. They just happened to find that fucking bullet on his.
Yeah, how the hell did the bullet go through the vice president's lapel and hit the?
Well, not only that. Well, that's not even what they said. They said it came from the back of him, hit his like went through the back and everything. Came out his throat, hit another person in the freaking wrist, came back, hit somebody or whatever.
Maybe it bounced off that big chrome radio in the. Well, here's the thing, though. The bullet they found, the magic bullet, was like pristine. Magic bullet.
That's what they call it, the magic bullet theory.
Hey, isn't that what you make your drinks in?
Yes,
magic bullet.
The magic bullet. But I mean, dude, it's all bullcrap.
Okay.
I can start a whole other podcast.
We're gonna move on to a different conspiracy here.
We can have a whole other podcast about that. Anyway,
I'm gonna kind of lay back here, and I'm gonna let Ryan tell us some ghost stories.
Yeah, because I got there's like I said with the hundreds of bodies being buried there, no one knows who the hell they are really. They're just laying underneath the ground, underneath this, and all this stuff has happened there. There's a guy named Tom Wells, and he was a former corrections officer there.
Yes.
For a lot of years, and he. This is coming from kind of the part of the show that we watched the other day with the ghost hunters and stuff like that. I listened to that interview, and in the interview he was talking about how it was at count time, so they had to do head count, you know. Yeah.
And all the inmates know that they cannot leave during count time.
It's at count time, you know. So he said he was talking to one of the inmates, and they seen another inmate kind of walk out the door next to him.
What you guys got to understand is all these guys in the prison, they have a uniform. They have to wear, I think it was gray slacks.
I think it's brown.
Or brown slacks and a white T-shirt.
And a brown like long sleeve shirt. Yeah. And so they both seen this guy walk out. So, Wells was like, that's just, he knows better than to walk out. Well, it's disrespectful.
He never really said anything. He just walked over to the door and started looking.
Yeah, he's seen a guy.
And then the other inmate walks up and says to him.
When he walks out to go look for the guy, he's like looking around, and the guy, he's like, hey, it's count time, and there's no one there.
Yeah.
And the other inmate that he was talking to kind of walks up to him. He's like, you ain't going to find that guy.
Yeah.
And he's like, what the hell? So he's seen, both of them seen a ghost walking out, and basically there's no one there. And of course they do tours there now. And there's a tour guide there, and her name is Maggie Scott, and she does regular tours there and stuff. And she was in A-Hall.
Told Ryan I was going to have the worst problem with that.
We'll talk more about A-Hall in a minute. But she was in A-Hall, and she was sitting, during a little tour. They were doing like an EVP session or something. And they were sitting in chairs, and she said she felt like they were sitting there talking, and all of a sudden she felt someone come up and put their hand on her shoulder from behind and grip as hard as they could and pull her back out of her chair.
Did they say, hey, baby?
Yeah, it didn't say nothing. And then, so she freaked out, ran out, and left, but she's still doing tours there, which, you got to be pretty tough to freaking,
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's the thing about this place is it was so run down and dirty and just dank hallways and reeked of sweat and sex and violence and blood and these guards are working in there with these people. Yeah. And, the conditions were just deplorable. No AC. Yeah. Some parts of the prison didn't even have heat. And these guards are...
Sorry. You said sex and stuff, and I was thinking about that movie. It's like, the sex you want, you ain't getting. The sex you getting, you don't want.
Maybe they need the spoon.
Man.
But these guards were working in this place, and you got to give it up for these guards, because these guards, they roughly, when this prison, we're talking, even in the 1900s, we're only bringing home about $15,000 a year.
Yeah.
To put their life on the line every day and deal with these people in these deplorable conditions and getting yelled at and spit on and,
and
just a vicious place.
Well, and the people say that people who go there, they say they get scratched, they've been pulled, they've been grabbed. Lots of stories about pictures they've taken and stuff like that. People hearing this, hearing that. But there's a story in here about the riot of 1954. And there's a group of inmates. They hammered through a brick wall, right? And they were hammering through this wall because there was an inmate they were going to go try to kill because he was supposedly a narc. And that guy's name was Walter Lee Darnell.
And what was weird about that is they hammered through a wall that was 10 cells down.
Oh, yeah, they hammered through
hammered through the wall to get to the hallway.
To that hallway. This guy's sitting in that hallway just listening to them chisel, and he knows what's going on,
Mm-hmm.
And he's sitting there, think about that. They're coming for you. And they're sitting there, and they're just hammering, and you hear that. And then all of a sudden, they get through. They're yelling shit,
Yeah.
So they get through to get to him, and they bust open the cell door, and they beat him to death with a hammer.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that he was in cell number 48, which cell number 48 is considered one of the most haunted cells. It's where the murder of Walter Lee Darnell took place. And it's a hot spot for activity. People report having high electromagnetic fields there, disembodied voices, even the feeling that feeling of dread and death and pain that Darnell would have went through. Feeling the sadness, you know what I mean?
Right.
They also feel someone breathing down their neck. So, and this is all in cell 48. And it's people. A lot of pictures. You can find a lot of pictures of cell 48. A lot of people say, "Oh, look at this. There's something back here. There's something here."
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
EVPs and stuff like that. It's a story like that. You just got to imagine how it would to get beat to death. Period.
Well, and you think about the violent end that these people came to. It's no wonder the place is haunted.
Yeah, it's the energy, man.
It's so much negative energy. It's got to go somewhere.
And what's crazy is, I was listening to, it's not crazy really, but people talk about science. Oh, it's got to be with the science. But there's science now talking about how objects hold energy.
Yes.
They hold feelings.
Well, we all know that energy cannot be created nor destroyed. It's got to go somewhere.
So,
it's scientific.
The science is out there, Well, okay. So we talked about cell 48, which is in A-Hall and all that.
Did you just say A-Hole?
A-Hole. So.
Ryan did it first.
Hey, man. Got things on my mind.
Yeah.
All this prison talk.
Yeah.
You got me clustered up in this wall here, about ready to have some fun in this closet.
Well, think about that. This little room that we're in is not much smaller than these cells these guys were in.
Exactly. So we're going to talk about A-Hall. A-Hall, which is the oldest building at the prison. It's I think 140 something years old, 146 or something.
Okay.
Like that.
Well, it opened in 1868.
So
it's also referred to as Housing Unit 4.
Yeah. And it's a huge building.
And it was built by the inmates.
Built by the inmates, and it's just basically you walk into this building, and it's just cells stacked floor to ceiling, all the way to the front to back.
And it's 3 stories. Four stories. And it's kind of cool because there's catwalks going across.
Yes, all along top, all
along the top. On each floor, there's a catwalk going from one side to the other. There's 2 or 3 of them per level. You know, this place is pretty big.
Yeah, it's
pretty
huge.
Big.
It's huge.
I don't know. Did you ever see how many cells are actually in it?
I didn't look up how many they were, but I know that, like I said.
But I know pictures I saw of it. It's huge.
It's stacked floor to ceiling, so you got to think about it, you know.
Right.
But the thing, A-Hall is like supposedly the most haunted area. A lot of people, I know that, I believe it was Maggie Scott, the tour guide, said she doesn't go there. She won't do tours in it. And it's also home to the Hole.
Okay.
And Death Row. We'll talk about Death Row in a minute.
Right.
But
something interesting about the A-Hall is, now it escapes me. I forgot to write it down, and I meant to write this down when I ran across it. At one time, okay, so the A-Hall has had inmates interred in it ever since it was built in 1868. Okay?
Yeah.
It's
a lot of history.
It's always had people in it, except for there was one period of time where after the riots in 59, the roof caught on fire.
Yes.
They had to replace the roof. And there were stories about the inmates actually sleeping out in the yard during a sleet storm.
Yeah,
crazy. Because there was no roof on the building. And that was the only time that building did not have anybody in it, was while it was under reconstruction.
Crazy, dude.
You know? But these inmates were actually out in the yard sleeping in sleeping bags during a sleet storm. This place was brutal.
Oh yeah,
brutal.
I mean, and that's why there's just so much there. You know, it's like we talked about that energy. I can't wait to start actually getting to these places and checking stuff out, because I mean the energy.
We're gonna start doing it soon.
Yes, and the energy of these places, man. Like that's what I love. I love that feel. Like
I want to fart in the A-hole. Or
oh, there's going to be something going on in someone's A-hole for sure.
Whoa.
We're going to do a little reenactment here.
We're in a confined space. I'm kind of scared.
Oh, man. My wife was loving on me earlier before I left. She didn't want me to leave.
You already got loving in the A-hole.
Okay.
Oh, that'll be a song for the penitentiary. Loving in the A-hole.
That's probably actually already made. I guarantee you can look that son bitch up. It's probably a Cardi B fucking song.
Yeah.
Anyway, so we'll get back to the actual hole, not the A-hole.
The actual hole.
And this was like an absolute nightmare to be in.
Yes.
The whole, I mean, there was no light. There was no air, no fresh air. There was no heat, no air conditioning.
Yeah.
Like, there was nothing. It was basically just
a
hole in the ground.
What they did is when they created this hole, they dug down into the bedrock.
Mm-hmm.
And they carved these cells out of the limestone. Okay, so the walls of these cells down there were thicker than the normal walls of the cells that were right above them. And this is where they put the worst of the worst.
Yes.
I had saw a number that at one time they had like 70 people down there.
Yeah, 15 people to a cell.
It was like, all right, to put it in perspective, they basically dug a hole in the ground, opened it up a little bit, carved into the wall, no windows, no lights, like Ryan said, no air conditioning, no heat. The door was solid iron, so no light came through that. And they would throw hay on the floor for them to sleep on, and all they got was a water bucket and a chamber pot. That's it.
Yeah.
Period. And there was one guy, and I don't know if you caught his name, his Firebug was the guy. He was a pyromaniac, and then the guy's name escapes me. I'm sorry I didn't write down more information, but I should have. But this guy, they called him Firebug. He tried to set the prison on fire and got caught. He ended up spending 17 years in the hole. 17 years straight. And when he got out, he wrote a book about, I think it's called 18 Years in the Grave or something like that. I mean, you're talking spending 17 years of your life in complete darkness with no communication with anybody.
You'd be blind when you come out.
And these guys, they were only granted 1 hour of activity a day. And it was in a fenced-off yard right outside their...
Yeah, the hole there.
The solitary confinement is what it was. Yeah. So they were granted 1 hour a day of activity, and then they went right back into the hole.
Yeah. Man, God dang, dude. And they're, and it's just like with death row.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah. And they're shoving 15 people into these cells.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, in a cell made for maybe if you put people, standing up side by side with nothing in it.
Yeah.
You're talking about maybe having 8 people in there, possibly.
It was interesting. I was watching a video of the tour company doing a tour, and they were taking people down through there, and they were talking to them about, this is the hole, and this is the area, and, they'd walk in, they'd be like, oh my God, that room's tiny. It's about the size of this. And he would say, yes, but they stayed in half of this because each one held 2 people.
Yeah.
That's why there's 2 doors.
Yeah.
And they were like, oh my God. I mean, it was just unbelievable. There was a lot of people just came out of there absolutely batshit crazy.
Well, and that's the real torture, is the mental torture too. It's like, I would rather just kill me than put me down there. And that's what they know. They know people would rather just kill them, so what do they do? They put them down there.
That was one thing I forgot to talk about when we were talking about executions that I thought was kind of interesting, because I thought, okay, this place was open for 168 years and they only executed 40 people? No, they actually executed more than that. What happened before 1939, the local sheriff's department would execute the prisoners. They would take them out of the prison and actually execute them. Firing squad, hang them, I mean, they weren't burning at the stake or anything, but, it was the actual local police department, the sheriff's department would actually execute these inmates.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing about it. You don't really know, like, the real history, you know what I'm saying? You don't know if they actually, we can hear stories, but that's with everything.
But until you live it.
I mean, who knows what they've done?
Okay. Here's an interesting concept. Have you ever been in jail?
No.
I've been to jail one time for something stupid. I was
involved a sheep and some.
It was really dirty, but it was gross. But anyway, I spent roughly 3 hours in a jail cell, and I'm going to tell you, 3 hours in a cell with 2 other guys. And this was at a modern jail. Yeah. This was at Hillsborough. Yeah. Okay, modern jail. 3 hours seemed like a freaking eternity. Oh, it really did. It really did. I was in there long enough that I got I got blessed to be able to eat lunch. So they brought me the worst cheeseburger I've ever had in my freaking life, and something on my tray that I couldn't even explain. I don't
They give you no French fries?
I don't know what it was.
No curly fry with cheese sauce?
I'm just lucky I got something more than a bologna sandwich, because according to some of my other friends, that's usually all you get. I just happened to be there on burger day.
I actually like fried bologna sandwiches.
Which was gross, but...
I hate fried bologna sandwiches.
And it was kind of weird. I was in there with these 2 other guys, and we were telling stories, and, we were talking about... it's that typical, hey, man, hey, brother, why you in? And I was like, oh, well,
The sheep, and she said yes. But she's saying she said no.
I'm in for driving on a suspended license, and they're like, oh yeah, I'm in because I broke my neighbor's door window, and this other guy's like, yeah, they got me here for pornography. They, my daughter had some friends over, and the police came, and they found these pictures of her friends, on, in my daughter's room and stuff, and they arrested me for it. And I'm like, wow, that sounds really screwed up. I mean, this guy was like, I don't know, he looked like everyday
every
Joe,
pedophile ever drawn.
He was a heavy set guy with a bald head, and the more I think about it, he kind of looked like Uncle Fester, but then, I don't know, it was like, a week later, I see this guy's face pop up on the news, and I was like, hey, honey, that's the guy I was in jail with. And they're like, oh yeah, blah, blah, so-and-so was just convicted of 17 different cases of child pornography. And I was like, oh my freaking God. And I was in a cell with this dude. And I was only like 17 at the time.
Oh, is this your Rob Zombie days?
It's like, whoa.
Yeah, dude, I would have.
Yeah, it was interesting.
I couldn't be there.
So yeah, I'm a jailbird.
I couldn't be in.
That's the only time I've ever been to jail. Which is amazing.
The only time I want to be in jail is whenever I go up there to check out Missouri State Penitentiary.
Or some caged heat or something like that.
I have been caged. I have been in a cage before.
Caged heat was a porno, prison. Okay, yeah. I just wanted to make sure we were on the same page.
I have been. I have been locked in a cage though with another human being trying to kill me.
Oh yeah, you have. You have
multiple times.
You have.
So I mean, granted, we both knew what we were doing and we both signed up for it. So I mean, it is what it is. Sometimes you just gotta deal with it. But as far as the prison goes, yeah, this one. I mean, I just watched another an episode of something today, and they were at the that show Kindred Spirits.
Okay.
Which I like it. You know, they don't hardly ever find any evidence, which is cool because that means I'm not bullshitting you.
Right.
But sometimes they do. But anyway, they were at another Liberty, Missouri, at the Oddfellows house. I think it was the name of it, the Oddfellows. And it's like a secret society or some shit.
Okay.
And it's in Liberty, Missouri. The house is in Liberty, Missouri. And this is their new episode, so it's fairly new that they've been there. But I'm going back to the whole thing about these places holding that energy and holding that that feeling. And I'm not necessarily talking about holding the spirit of something, but just holding that feeling, holding that negative energy or the positive energy even. Some rooms make you feel good, you know. So it's not necessarily saying that. Now, don't get me wrong. I think this place is definitely haunted.
Yeah,
100%.
Oh, yeah.
There's way too many people and way too many too much evidence that's not.
Right.
But I think there are a lot of places that just hold just the feelings of things. You know what I mean?
Right.
You may not see a ghost or nothing, but you feel a certain way when you walk in there.
Yeah.
You know? And
can I tell a quick story about
you
were talking about cell 48 a while ago. There's also another cell, cell 76, I think it is. It was kind of an interesting story. It was told from the tour guide's perspective. And basically he had said he had this woman on his tour that they had went into all these places, and when they got to the A-Hall, she would not cross the threshold of A-Hall. And he kept trying to coax her in, you know, come on, let's go, you know, and she's like, no, I don't want to go in there. And he didn't understand. He was like, you know, come on, you know, we're going to finish out the tour in here and, you know, talk about some different stuff. And she's like, no, I don't want to go in there. And finally he got her to tell him why. And she said, well, because when I looked in here a while ago, there was a man standing up there on the catwalk, and he was just outside that cell door there, and he was leaning over with his hands on the railing. And she said, looking at him, he, you know, was dressed in a white t-shirt and the brown slacks, and it looked like part of his head had been, like he had been beat up or whatever. And the tour guide was like, oh my God. So the tour guide then told the story of that cell belonged to this inmate, and he was bludgeoned to death inside that cell. They had basically caved his skull in. Yeah. Inside that cell. And he said, interestingly enough, the day before this happened, they had a bird fly into the prison, and it landed on the railing of that cell. It was a pigeon, and it landed on the railing right outside that cell, and after it landed there, it fell to the ground and was dead.
What?
He's like, so the story that this woman told me made perfect sense to me.
Wow. That's crazy. Yeah, I mean, and not only something we didn't really talk about is the suicides.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of people hung themselves in there.
A lot of them.
And I mean,
well, during the riot, so the riots, they said that once they called in everybody during these riots of 1959. These prisoners basically got a hold of the keys from the guards that they beat up, and they ran down the hallway, unlocking every cell, letting all the inmates out of their cells. And they said that during these riots, they called in. It was the Jefferson, so it was all the guards that were there. It was the Jefferson County, the Jefferson City Police Department, Sheriff's Department was there. The Missouri State Highway Patrol was there. They called in the police department from St. Louis, St. Charles, and there was somewhere else that showed up. The National Guard from Missouri was there, and they went in and had to rile these prisoners in. And during that time, so there were 4 prisoners that were killed. There were close to 50 that were wounded, and there were a couple that committed suicide during that whole thing.
Wow.
So, and they said that once they got out of their cells, they started tearing the place up and setting fires, and they set fires all over this place, and they caused almost $5 million worth of damage to the property.
Damn.
And this was in 1959.
Yeah.
$5 million in 1959 by today's standards, probably 10 or 15 million,
I was going to say, probably around 15,000 or million.
Easily.
Yeah.
Easily.
Wow. That's freaking crazy.
Yeah.
Man.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, these places hold that, man.
And a lot of negative energy in
and that's the cool stuff about it. That's why I can't wait to go visit this place. I can't wait. Because if I can swing it, I really want to do the overnight investigations.
Yeah.
And
I think we can do it. It's only money.
Yeah. It's only money, man.
Only money and nerves of steel.
Balls of steel. Sorry.
That was a good movie.
Yeah. Dun, 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 dun.
Throwing wrenches at people.
Oh no, sorry. You're talking about dodgeball.
Oh no, yeah, you're right. That was dodgeball.
You can dodge a wrench, you can dodge a ball.
Yeah. That's right. Never mind.
Sorry, guys. We're a little loopy.
Yeah.
But
I shouldn't have had those 2 shots of whiskey before I came in here.
I shouldn't be drinking his vodka out of his water bottle.
Yeah.
Oh, but
nobody
anyway,
will smell
guys.
It.
So that was our little. This will be our first one. Like I said, we're going to do another episode on the Missouri State Penitentiary.
Yeah, we really want to go up there and visit the place and then do a rundown after.
Because we're hoping, and if we get EVPs, we're going to put our EVPs in here. We're going to add those to it, and or any audio.
And if Ryan gets something in the A-hole, he's going to share that with you.
You guys will hear me scream like a little baby girl.
Oh, I'm sorry. I meant A-hole. Sorry.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to, just in case, I'm carrying some Vaseline with me.
Yeah, I'm taking a butt plug.
I better wear one of those male garters, or whatever they're called.
Chastity belt.
Chastity belts. Oh man. Anyway, guys, I think we're gonna end this one, but
yeah, I mean, it was an interesting topic. We were kind of worried. Well, I was kind of worried we'd have enough to talk about. I mean, there's so much more information out there that you guys could dig up.
Yeah, we don't want to talk about too much. We didn't want to just leave you guys with nothing but history on it.
Right.
So we kind of wanted to do some more of the hauntings and stuff like
that. If you Google search Missouri State Penitentiary, there is a ton of ghost tour information out there.
Yes, I'm on Facebook. Has a lot of. I'm actually on a Facebook group where it tells me when they're sends me a little, hey, ghost tours coming up. Do you want to go? Blah blah. So we're gonna go for sure. And then once we do that, I'm hoping we get some EVPs and some shit, and we're gonna put it on our episode when we do that. It's gonna be a little bit from now, but. It's in the works. There's a lot of things going on.
It'd be cool.
It's going to be cool, guys. Cool. So hit us up on Facebook and let us know some stuff. Send us an email.
Yeah, the Horror Chronicles podcast at gmail.com.
Give us some ideas of what you want to hear about. Anything you guys want to talk about as far as this stuff goes, let us know so we'll jump on it. We need ideas. We got plenty of ideas of our own, but we want to know what you guys want to hear.
Yeah.
So let us know. And so until next time, everybody.
Keep it creepy.